Hello, beautiful listeners, and welcome back to Green Earth Essentials. I'm your host, Michelle Jackson, and today we're diving into the colorful world of natural dyes. We'll explore how to use plants to dye clothing and fabrics, a beautiful, eco-friendly practice that dates back thousands of years and is just as relevant and accessible today. Whether you're looking to revive old garments, live more sustainably, or try something creative with your kids or community, this episode is packed with tips, history, and hands-on how-tos. So grab a mug of something cozy and let's begin. Long before synthetic dyes revolutionized the textile industry in the 1800s, humans relied on the living world around them to add color and meaning to their clothing. Every region developed its own rich dyeing traditions using locally available materials, plants, roots, barks, fungi, and even insects. These natural dyes were more than just decorative, they were deeply symbolic, often denoting social status, spiritual beliefs, tribal affiliations, or regional identity. In India, indigo became so valued it was called blue gold, used for centuries to dye cotton in vivid, lasting shades. In West Africa, indigo dyeing evolved into an art form with intricate resist techniques like a dire in Nigeria, creating complex patterns and deeply cultural textiles. Ancient Egyptians used madder root to produce shades of red and pink, while the vivid yellow of saffron robes was reserved for Buddhist monks in Tibet and other parts of Asia. Meanwhile, Native American tribes in North America used goldenrod, sumac, and walnut to create earthy tones that reflected the colors of their landscapes. The craft of natural dyeing has been passed down through generations, often through oral tradition or within artisan guilds. In Peru, 6,000-year-old textiles dyed with cochineal, a red pigment made from insects, and indigo show just how far back this practice goes and how sophisticated ancient dyeing techniques already were. These methods weren't just practical, They were sacred and sustainable, embodying a deep connection to the land, seasons, and community. Today, reviving these traditions helps us reconnect with the past and embrace more eco-conscious ways of living. The botanical world offers an astonishing array of colors, and certain plants have become iconic for their ability to reliably produce strong, lasting dyes. These dye plants were often cultivated specifically for their pigment, forming the backbone of ancient textile industries and local economies. For example, indigo tinctoria, the plant behind traditional indigo dye, requires a special fermentation process to release its deep blue pigment, an intricate technique refined over centuries in places like Japan, India, and Mali. Rubia tinctorum madder was so valued in medieval Europe that entire farms were dedicated to its cultivation, with its roots producing a range of reds depending on soil quality and harvest time. Curcuma longa, or turmeric, has long been used not only to dye fabric a sunny yellow, but also as a spiritual and protective color in South Asian ceremonies, often symbolizing purity and renewal. Native American tribes used black walnut hulls for rich browns, often pairing them with natural mordants like alum or iron to deepen or shift the color. Similarly, outer skins of yellow or red onions can be saved and steeped to create beautiful golden to rust-colored tones, making them an accessible option even for urban dyers. In Central and South America, Hematoxylum campechinum, known as logwood, was once so highly prized for its purples and blacks that it spurred colonial conflicts. Meanwhile, in northern climates, plants like goldenrod, birch leaves, and elderberries offered seasonal hues for garments and baskets. What's remarkable is that many of these traditional dye plants are hardy, adaptable, and can be found growing wild or cultivated in modern gardens and homesteads. For anyone interested in reconnecting with the land, these plants provide not only color, but a story, one that links you to centuries of craft, culture, and ecology. While the materials varied from culture to culture, the core of natural dyeing relied on time-honored techniques that were both resourceful and deeply connected to place. Most traditional methods involved preparing the fabric by scouring it to remove oils and residues, then using a mordant, a substance that helps fix dye to the fibers. Mordants like alum, iron, copper, and tannins were often derived from local plants, minerals, or tree barks, and they could dramatically alter the outcome of a color. For instance, iron would deepen colors, turning bright reds into burgundy or golds into olive greens. In Japan, the resist dyeing technique known as shibori involved folding, twisting, or stitching cloth before dyeing it in natural indigo vats, resulting in ethereal cloud-like patterns. In West Africa, communities built permanent dyeing pits where fabric could be repeatedly dipped in fermented indigo solutions and exposed to air to oxidize, gradually turning a vivid blue. In the Andes, Peruvian weavers used a rainbow of natural dyes extracted from cochineal insects, chilca leaves, and chilca mosses, often with llama urine used as a mordant to intensify red tones. Among Native American tribes, the Navajo combined careful plant knowledge with artistic tradition. Their palette came from plants like rabbit brush for yellow, wild plum for green, and mountain mahogany bark for reddish tones, boiled and applied with patience and care. In Eastern Europe, onion skins, elderberries, and birch leaves were layered with linen cloth and boiled for hours to achieve rich, earthy tones. Traditional Buddhist monks dye their robes bright yellow or saffron using natural plant-based dyes, a practice rooted in simplicity and humility. In many Theravada Buddhist traditions, particularly in countries like Thailand, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar, monks use parts of local plants such as jackfruit wood, turmeric, or heartwood from specific trees to achieve the iconic golden hue. The dyeing process is typically done by hand, with robes boiled in large pots of plant material until the desired color is absorbed. The yellow-orange color symbolizes renunciation, the middle path, and detachment from materialism. Even today, this practice continues as a spiritual ritual, reflecting a deep connection between nature, mindfulness, and monastic life. These dyeing traditions weren't just about utility, they were cultural expressions tied to identity, ceremony, and storytelling, passed down through oral traditions. Many of these methods still survive today, thanks to craftspeople and communities determined to keep them alive, with each region using what the land offered. Natural dyeing became a beautiful dialogue between people and place. You don't need a huge garden to grow dye plants. Marigolds, calendula, purple basil, and hollyhock all grow well in pots. Avocado pits and onion skins can be collected from your kitchen. If you forage, be mindful. Never take more than 10% of a wild plant population and avoid endangered species. Community gardens, farmers markets, and local permaculture groups can be great sources for seeds and scraps. Dyer's coreopsis, black beans, and goldenrod are other accessible options. Creating a backyard or balcony dye garden can be both beautiful and practical. Many dye plants are not only colorful in the vat, they're also pollinator friendly, making your space a haven for bees and butterflies. Plants like wild Reseda luteola, a traditional source of brilliant yellow, or Japanese indigo, Persicaria tinctoria, can thrive in sunny patches and don't require much more than regular watering. Others, like pokeweed, which yields shades of magenta, or sumac, which contains natural tannins, often grow wild along roadsides or forest edges. Just be sure to positively ID any wild plants before use, and wear gloves when handling potentially toxic ones like pokeweed. For off-grid or low-resource homesteads, many dye plants can double as food or medicine. Elderberries, for example, are used both as natural dye and as immune-boosting syrup. Red cabbage makes a beautiful pH-sensitive dye and a tasty kitchen staple. Sunflowers, beets, and even coffee grounds from your morning brew can lend subtle, earthy tones to fabric. The beauty of growing your own dye plants is in the experimentation. Soil type, water quality, and climate can all influence the final color, making every batch unique. Some homesteaders even grow plants in slightly acidic or alkaline soils on purpose to shift color outcomes. Over time, you'll start to notice which native or invasive plants in your area offer interesting hues, like buckthorn berries, dandelions, or even nettles. And don't overlook compost bins and pruning piles. Fallen leaves, bark trimmings, and kitchen scraps can often become unexpected sources of color. Keep a dedicated bin for dyeables and start building your own personal palette, one season at a time. To begin dyeing your own fabrics at home, here's a simple workflow. First, scour your fabric. Wash it thoroughly to remove oils or residues. Next, mordant it using alum found at health food stores or online to help the color bind. Then prepare your dye bath. Simmer your plant material in a stainless steel pot. Strain it and add your fabric. Simmer gently and stir regularly for even color. Let it cool in the pot overnight for deeper tones. Rinse with cold water, then hang to dry away from direct sun. Not all fibers behave the same in the dyeing process, so it's important to match your technique to your material. Natural fibers like cotton, linen, wool, and silk take dye best, especially when properly mordanted. Protein fibers like wool and silk often absorb color more vibrantly and can handle a wider range of plant dyes. Synthetic fabrics, on the other hand, usually resist natural dyes and are best avoided for this process. If you're unsure about your fabric content, do a patch test first. Cut a small piece, dye it, and see how it holds color before committing to a full project. Avocado pits and peels give dreamy peachy pinks. Red cabbage creates a pH-sensitive dye. Add lemon juice for pink. baking soda for blue. Black beans yield dusty purples, while hibiscus can shift from red to lavender. Using iron as a modifier will deepen colors. Cotton and linen take dyes differently than wool or silk, so experiment. Keep in mind that natural dyes are more variable than synthetic ones, but that unpredictability is part of the magic. To boost color fastness, how well the dye holds up to washing and light. Pre-soak your fabric in a mordant like alum or tannin and avoid harsh detergents when laundering. Heat also plays a role. The longer your fabric simmers in the dye bath, the deeper the color saturation. But be cautious not to overheat delicate fibers like silk. Letting dyed items cure for 24 to 48 hours before the final rinse can also help lock in color. For off-grid living or low-impact dyeing, solar dyeing, placing the dye bath in jars under sunlight for several days, is a gentle, energy-free method that yields surprisingly strong hues. Make it fun. Try tie-dyeing with string or rubber bands. Eco-printing involves placing leaves and petals on fabric, rolling them up, and steaming the bundle to transfer patterns. Resist dyeing uses wax, thread, or paste to block parts of the fabric from taking color. These techniques create beautiful, one-of-a-kind patterns and connect you to traditional craft forms with a modern twist. Always dye in a well-ventilated area. Use dedicated pots and tools. Don't reuse kitchen cookware. Be cautious with mordants like iron or copper. Use gloves and label everything. Compost spent plant matter and reuse dye baths when possible. Remember, the most sustainable dyeing is small scale, thoughtful, and repurposed. Start with old cotton sheets, linen napkins, or a stained t-shirt, looking for new life. To take your sustainability a step further, consider sourcing dye plants locally or growing your own with organic practices to avoid pesticides. Opt for rainwater or collected gray water when preparing your dye baths to conserve resources. You can also experiment with bundle dyeing, an eco-conscious technique that uses minimal water and creates abstract, artistic patterns by steaming plant material directly onto fabric. And when you're finished, share dye bath water with plants that enjoy the pH shift, like acid-loving hydrangeas, rather than dumping it down the drain. Living off-grid? No problem. Heat your dye bath over a wood stove or solar cooker. Mordants like vinegar and salt are accessible alternatives to alum. Rainwater often works better than chlorinated tap water. You can repurpose jars, buckets, and even fire pits as dye stations. This craft blends beautifully with homesteading and low-waste living. For drying and setting the colors, take advantage of the natural environment. Sun-dry fabrics on a clothesline or shaded tree branch, depending on how light-sensitive the dye is. Solar dehydration can also be used to concentrate plant material for future use. Off-grid dyers often rely on intuition, observation, and small batch experimentation to achieve beautiful results without precise measurements. And because it's a slower, more intentional process, it fosters a deeper connection with the land, the plants, and the art of making something truly your own. Natural dyeing is more than a hobby. It's a form of slow fashion, a way to reduce textile waste, and a deeply satisfying creative process. You learn to see weeds, compost, and kitchen scraps in a whole new light. Whether you're making gifts, decorating your home, or deepening your sustainability journey, plant-based dyeing offers joy, color, and connection to the earth. Thank you so much for joining me today on Green Earth Essentials. If you love this episode and want to support our mission of sharing empowering, earth-friendly ideas, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/Green Earth Essentials. Every dollar helps us keep the show independent and overflowing with fresh inspiration. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep creating beauty with nature. This is Michelle Jackson, signing off.